$4 billion, 35 years of ruthless ambition, and Ji-hoon Park was willing to risk it all, his empire, his reputation, his very life, on a single test: fake his own death and watch. But what he discovered in those 8 devastating minutes didn't just end his engagement, it rewrote his entire past. And it was Tiara, the cleaning lady he'd barely noticed for 2 years, who would reveal the truth that stopped his wedding and exposed a conspiracy 20 years in the making. Before we continue, this story gets intense. Subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling us, are you Team Truth or Team Loyalty? And tell us what city you're watching from. Now, let's dive in. Silence suffocated the Savannah mansion like Spanish moss choking an oak tree. Ji-hoon Park stood at his bedroom window, from watching the November sun bleed gold across the Georgia coastline. At 35, he'd conquered real estate markets from Atlanta to Seoul, turned failing properties into billion-dollar empires, and built a reputation as the man who never miscalculated. But for the past 6 weeks, something had been calculating him. Vivienne Laurent, his fiancée of 18 months, the woman whose elegance had stopped conversations at every charity gala from Buckhead to Charleston, had changed. Or perhaps she'd simply stopped pretending. Their conversations had narrowed to a single topic: the wedding. Not their future, not their dreams, just the ceremony she orchestrated with the precision of a corporate takeover, the guest list, the 7-tier cake, the vintage champagne that cost more than most people's cars. See, never once had she asked what he wanted. Never once had she touched him with anything resembling warmth. Last night had confirmed his darkest suspicions. Ji-hoon had been in his study, reviewing acquisition contracts, when he'd heard Vivienne's voice drift from the master bedroom. She was on the phone, her tone low and sharp, the voice she used with her lawyers, not with friends. He'd moved silently to the doorway, his heart suddenly loud in his ears. 3 months after the wedding, Vivienne had said, her French accent clipped with impatience. We wait exactly 3 months. Any earlier raises questions, any later, and he might change the will. A pause. Then, the heart doesn't have to stop forever, Marcus, just long enough for the ink to dry. Ji-hoon had stood frozen in the hallway, his entire world tilting on its axis. When Vivienne had emerged minutes later, she'd smiled at him, that practiced, perfect smile, and asked if he'd confirmed the florist for the ceremony. He'd spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe beside him, wondering if each breath was calculated. By dawn, he'd made his decision. He had to know, not suspect, not wonder, no. And there was only one way to find out who Vivienne Laurent truly was. That morning, Vivienne was in her private gym, her morning routine as rigid as her smile. Tiara Washington, their housekeeper, had arrived at 7 sharp, the way she had every day for the past 2 years. Ji-hoon could hear the quiet rhythm of her work, the soft shuffle of her cart, the gentle hum she made when she thought no one was listening. He knew almost nothing about Tiara. 28, maybe 30 years old, always punctual, always professional. She had dark, intelligent eyes that seemed to notice everything but never judged. She wore her hair in neat braids, her red cleaning uniform always pressed, her blue gloves always fresh. Vivienne never spoke to her, just left typed notes on the kitchen island like Tiara was an app, not a person. But Ji-hoon had noticed the small things, how Tiara always made sure his coffee was ready before he came downstairs, how she'd quietly replaced his dying office plant with a thriving one, never mentioning it, how she'd once found his mother's antique watch, lost for weeks, and left it on his desk with a simple note. Thought you might be looking for this. She saw him. In a house full of people who wanted something from him, Tiara Washington simply saw him. Ji-hoon took a breath that felt like swallowing broken glass. He moved to the center of his bedroom, the Persian rug soft beneath his feet. Through the cracked door, he could hear Vivienne's trainer counting reps. Tiara's cart was somewhere in the west wing. It was now or never. He let himself fall. The impact jarred his shoulder, sent pain shooting through his ribs. He controlled his breathing, shallow, irregular, the way he'd researched. Through barely open eyelids, he could see the ornate ceiling, the chandelier his mother had shipped from Korea, the life he'd built, becoming a stage for the most important performance of his life. Seconds stretched like centuries. His heart thundered so loud he was certain it would give him away. Somewhere in the house, a door closed. Footsteps, Tiara's soft ones, moved down the hallway, then stopped. Then he heard the unmistakable click of Vivian's heels. She appeared in the doorway, her yoga outfit pristine, not a hair out of place. Ji-hoon watched through his lashes as she stopped, looked down at him sprawled on the floor, and for one terrible moment, he hoped. Hoped she'd scream, hoped she'd run to him, hoped everything he'd heard last night was a nightmare. Vivian checked her watch. "Ji-hoon," she said, her voice carrying the same irritation she used when the caterer was late. "What is this drama? I have a hair appointment in 40 minutes and Marcus is waiting for my call." She didn't move toward him, didn't kneel, didn't reach for her phone. She sighed, actually sighed, and pulled out her cell, but not to call 911. "Marcus," she said softly, turning slightly away. "He's down, earlier than we thought." "How long until—" She never finished the sentence, because that's when Tiara screamed. The scream tore through the mansion like a gunshot through silk. Tiara's cleaning cart crashed against the hallway wall, supplies scattering across marble floors. Her footsteps, no longer quiet, no longer measured, pounded toward the bedroom. Ji-hoon heard Vivian's sharp intake of breath, heard her phone clatter to the floor as Tiara burst through the doorway. Oh God, no. Tiara's voice cracked like breaking glass. She dropped to her knees beside him, her red uniform bright against the Persian rug, blue gloves already reaching for his neck to check his pulse. Her hands trembled. "Not you. Please, not you." Through his barely open eyes, Ji-hoon saw her face, truly saw it for the first time in 2 years, grief-carved lines around her mouth. Tears pooled in those dark, intelligent eyes he'd never really looked into. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she pressed 2 fingers against his carotid artery, and he felt the heat of her touch even through the glove. This wasn't the careful, invisible woman who cleaned his floors. This was someone shattering. "What are you doing?" Vivian's voice cut through the moment, cold as January wind. "Step away from him. I'll call 911. Tiara didn't even look up. Her hands moved to Ji-hoon's chest, positioning for compressions. "Now, Vivian. Call them now. Don't you dare tell me what to—" "He's dying!" Tiara's scream silenced the room. She looked up then, and Ji-hoon saw something dangerous flash across her face. You're standing there like you're watching paint dry, and the man you're supposed to marry is dying on the floor. What's wrong with you? The question hung in the air like smoke. Vivian's perfectly made-up face went blank. Then she smiled, a small, calculated curve of lips. "You're overreacting. He's probably just—" "Overreacting?" Tiara's voice dropped to something lethal. His pulse is barely there. His breathing's irregular. These are signs of a stroke or cardiac event, and you're worried about your hair appointment? Ji-hoon's heart stuttered, not from the performance, but from the precision in Tiara's voice. That wasn't just first aid knowledge. That was medical training. Who was she? Tiara began compressions anyway, her movements expert and controlled despite the tears streaming down her face. "Ji-hoon," she whispered between counts, her voice breaking. "Stay with me. Please stay with me. Not after all this time. Not after everything." After everything? The words burrowed under Ji-hoon's skin. Vivian finally pulled out her phone, but Ji-hoon could hear the irritation in her voice as she spoke to emergency services. "Yes. My fiancé appears to have collapsed. The address? He owns half of Savannah, darling. Just look up Park Industries, and please hurry, I have appointments." She ended the call and checked her reflection in the gilded mirror above the fireplace, adjusting an earring. Tiara stopped compressions, her gloved hand cupping Ji-hoon's face with a tenderness that felt like a secret. "Breathe," she whispered. "Just breathe." "I'm here. I've got you." Her thumb brushed his cheekbone, and Ji-hoon felt something shift in his chest, something that had nothing to do with the performance. This woman, who he'd barely acknowledged for 2 years, was holding him like he mattered, like his life meant something beyond his bank account. "This is ridiculous," Vivian muttered. "Tiara, you're getting emotional over a man who probably can't even remember your last name." Tiara's jaw clenched. When she spoke, her voice was steady as steel. His favorite coffee is Ethiopian Yirgacheffe, medium roast with exactly 1 sugar. He reads the financial section first, then world news, then sports, in that order. He waters the orchid in his study every Tuesday and Friday because his mother taught him that consistency matters more than abundance. On Thursdays, he looks at the photos on his desk for exactly 3 minutes before his morning calls, and he always touches the frame with his father's picture last. Vivian's expression flickered. "You're the cleaning lady. Of course you'd notice." His mother's name was Sung Min. His father's name was Dai Jung. He has a scar on his left shoulder from a childhood accident involving a boat and a fishing line. He takes exactly 15 minutes to shower. He hates ties, but wears them anyway. And when he thinks no one's watching, he plays piano. Chopin, mostly. The nocturnes. The room went silent except for the sound of Tiara's breathing and the distant wail of approaching sirens. Ji-hoon's mind reeled. 2 years. She'd been in his home for 2 years, and she'd cataloged his entire existence while he'd barely learned her first name. "Who are you?" Vivian's voice lost its polish, turned sharp and suspicious. Tiara looked up, and Ji-hoon saw something dangerous settle into her features. Something that made her look less like a housekeeper and more like a woman who'd been playing a very long game. "Someone who actually gives a damn if he lives or dies," Tiara said softly, which is apparently more than his fiancée can say. The sirens grew louder. Ji-hoon felt Tiara's hand slip from his face, felt the loss of her warmth like a physical ache. He'd gotten his answer about Vivian, but now he had new questions, terrifying, thrilling questions about the woman in the red uniform who'd just revealed she'd been watching him as closely as he should have been watching her. The paramedics arrived in a blur of uniforms and equipment. Ji-hoon committed to the performance, letting them load him onto a stretcher, monitoring his vitals. Through it all, Vivian stood by the window, already on her phone rescheduling appointments. But Tiara followed the stretcher to the door, her hand gripping the metal rail, her eyes never leaving his face. And as they carried him away, Ji-hoon made a decision. He would recover from this episode. He would send Vivian away on some errand, and then he would find out exactly who Tiara Washington really was. Ji-hoon discharged himself from the hospital within 3 hours. The doctors called it a miracle, vitals completely normal, no signs of stroke or cardiac distress. Vivian called it dramatic and left for her rescheduled hair appointment before his paperwork was complete. By the time Ji-hoon's driver pulled into the mansion's circular drive, evening had painted Savannah in shades of amber and shadow. The house loomed before him, no longer a sanctuary but a crime scene. Every room held evidence of Vivian's betrayal. And somewhere inside, Tiara was still working. He found her in his study. She was dusting the mahogany bookshelves, her back to the door, her movements methodical and calm, as if the morning's chaos had never happened. But Ji-hoon noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way she gripped the dusting cloth too tightly. "You should be resting," she said without turning around. Ji-hoon closed the door behind him. The click of the lock seemed to echo. "How did you know I was here?" "I heard your car." Tiara set down the cloth but didn't face him. "You always park closer to the west entrance. The driver knows you prefer to avoid the main foyer when you're tired. You notice everything, don't you?" "It's my job." Number Ji-hoon moved closer, each step deliberate. "Your job is to clean. Your job is to dust and vacuum and disappear. Your job is not to know that I play Chopin when I think I'm alone. Your job is not to perform medical-grade CPR. Your job is not to know my parents' names." Tiara's spine straightened. "Maybe I'm just good at my job." Or maybe Ji-hoon stopped 3 feet behind her, close enough to see the tension rippling through her frame. "You're good at a completely different job." The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. Finally, Tiara turned. Without the panic of the morning, Ji-hoon could truly see her. She was beautiful in a way that didn't demand attention, the kind of beauty that revealed itself slowly, in layers. High cheekbones, full lips pressed into a careful line, eyes that held intelligence and something deeper, something haunted. "You faked it," she said quietly. "The collapse, the stroke, all of it." Ji-hoon didn't bother denying it. "How did you know?" "Your pulse." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. It was elevated but steady, not erratic. "And your breathing, you controlled it too perfectly. Someone actually experiencing a cardiac event doesn't have that kind of control." She tilted her head. "You were testing her." "Vivian." "And she failed spectacularly." "Yes." Tiara's eyes hardened. "She did. But you didn't." Ji-hoon took another step closer. The study suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. "You knew it was fake, and you still performed CPR. You still cried." Why? Tiara looked away, her jaw clenching. I couldn't be sure. And I couldn't risk being wrong. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Ji-hoon reached out, his hand hovering near her arm, but not quite touching. Who are you, Tiara Washington? She met his eyes then, and what he saw there made his breath catch. Pain, anger, and beneath it all, a determination that could cut glass. Someone who's been waiting 2 years for you to ask that question. The confession hung between them. Then, Tiara moved to his desk, her fingers trailing along the edge before she pulled open the bottom drawer, the locked drawer that required a code only Ji-hoon knew. His pulse spiked. How did you... Your father's birthday, reversed. She pulled out a manila folder he'd never seen before. You're predictable when it comes to the people you love. She dropped the folder on his desk. It landed with a heavy thud. Open it. Ji-hoon's hands moved automatically, flipping open the folder. Inside, photographs, surveillance reports, financial records, all centered on one person, Vivienne Laurent. What is this? Proof. Tiara's voice was steady now, professional. Vivienne Laurent isn't her real name. It's Vivienne Marchand. She's been married 3 times before. All 3 husbands died within a year of their weddings. All 3 deaths were ruled natural causes. All 3 left her everything. Ji-hoon's mind raced through the documents, autopsy reports, bank transfers, insurance policies. How did you get this? I'm a licensed private investigator. Or I was before I took this job. Tiara moved to stand beside him, her shoulder inches from his. I was hired by the daughter of husband number 2. She never believed her father's death was natural. She wanted proof. And you found it by becoming my housekeeper? I found it by becoming invisible. Tiara's finger pointed to a toxicology report. See that? Trace amounts of digoxin. In therapeutic doses, it regulates heart rhythm. In accumulated doses, it causes cardiac arrest that mimics natural death. Vivienne's been patient, methodical. She spaces out the doses so they're almost undetectable. Ji-hoon's stomach turned. You're saying she's been poisoning me? Your morning tea. Tiara pulled out another photograph, this one of Vivienne in the kitchen, adding something to a teacup. The timestamp read 3 days ago, every morning for the past 8 months, small amounts, building up in your system. She was going to wait until after the wedding, after the will was updated, and then increase the dosage. The room tilted. Ji-hoon gripped the desk. You've known this for 8 months and you didn't tell me? I needed proof that would hold up in court. I needed her confident enough to make mistakes. Tiara's voice softened. And I needed you to see it yourself, because if I'd come to you 2 years ago and told you the woman you loved was a serial killer, would you have believed me? No, he wouldn't have. He would have fired her on the spot. So you stayed, Ji-hoon said slowly. You pretended to be a cleaning lady. You watched. You waited. I protected you. Tiara turned to face him fully, and the proximity made Ji-hoon's pulse hammer. I switched your teacups every morning after she prepared them. I replaced your vitamins with placebos and tested them for contamination. I made sure you ate lunch at the office instead of at home. Every day for 8 months, I've been standing between you and death. The revelation crashed over Ji-hoon like a wave. This woman, this stranger he'd treated as furniture, he had been his guardian angel while he'd been planning to marry his executioner. Why? The question came out rough. Why risk so much for someone who never even learned your last name? Tiara's eyes flickered with something Ji-hoon couldn't name. Because someone has to stop her. Because 3 men are dead and their families never got justice. And because... She stopped, her throat working. Because you deserved better than dying by the hand of someone who only saw you as a bank account. The words settled into Ji-hoon's chest, warm and unexpected. He studied Tiara's face, really studied it, and saw the exhaustion beneath her composure. 2 years. She'd carried this burden for 2 years, alone and invisible. What's your real name? He asked quietly. A smile ghosted across her lips, sad and knowing. Tiara Elizabeth Sterling. Sterling, the name hit Ji-hoon like a physical blow. Sterling? As in Maxwell Sterling. Yes. Tiara's voice went distant. Your father's business partner, the man who taught you how to read financial statements when you were 12, the man who allegedly embezzled $3 million from Park Industries, and disappeared before he could be prosecuted. He killed himself, Ji-hoon whispered. The police found his body in the Savannah River. I know, I was 17. Tiara's hands clenched into fists. But my father didn't embezzle anything, Ji-hoon. He was framed. And the family that framed him, she pulled out one more document. This one, a marriage certificate, was the Marchand family, Vivian's family. Ji-hoon stared at the marriage certificate until the words blurred. His father's signature, Maxwell Sterling's signature. A business merger formalized 30 years ago. And at the bottom, as witnesses, Pierre Marchand and his wife, Colette, Vivian's parents. I don't understand, Ji-hoon said, his voice hollow. My father and yours were partners. They built Park Industries together. Why would the Martians want to destroy that partnership? Tiara's laugh was bitter, because they wanted the company for themselves. Pierre Marchand was your father's accountant. He had access to everything. He created phantom accounts, forged my father's signature, made it look like Maxwell Sterling was bleeding the company dry. She pulled out another folder, this one worn and creased from years of handling. Inside were newspaper clippings, all yellowed with age. Ji-hoon recognized the headlines. Business partner embezzles millions. Sterling found dead, suspected suicide. East Park Industries survives betrayal. Your father believed the evidence, Tiara continued, her voice steady but her hands trembling. Everyone did. My father's reputation was destroyed overnight. He couldn't get work, couldn't show his face. Our house was foreclosed. My mother had a breakdown. And my father, her voice cracked, my father couldn't live with the shame of something he didn't do. Ji-hoon felt sick. He remembered that time. He'd been 15, angry that his father's partner had betrayed them. He'd never questioned it, never doubted. I'm sorry, he whispered. God, Tiara, I'm so sorry. Your apology doesn't bring him back. The words were sharp, but her eyes were wet. Nothing brings him back. But I can make sure the people who killed him face justice. The Martians are dead, Ji-hoon said, remembering. They died in a car accident 7 years ago. Convenient timing, don't you think? Tiara's smile was cold. Right after Vivian's first husband died, right after she inherited his fortune. Some accidents aren't accidents at all. The implications settled over Ji-hoon like a shroud. You think Vivian killed her own parents? I think Vivian Marchand is very good at making people disappear when they're no longer useful. Tiara closed the folder. I've spent 10 years investigating my father's death. 10 years following the trail. It led me to Vivian's first husband, then her second, then her third. And now, she looked at Ji-hoon with eyes that held too much knowledge. It led me to you. Ji-hoon moved to the window, his mind racing. The Savannah skyline glittered in the darkness, beautiful and uncaring. So you became my housekeeper to protect me, to gather evidence? I became your housekeeper because I couldn't let another innocent man die. Tiara joined him at the window, her reflection ghosting beside his in the glass. Especially not you. Why especially me? Tiara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost vulnerable. Do you remember the summer of 2006? You came to Savannah with your father for a business trip. You stayed at the Sterling house for 2 weeks. Ji-hoon's heart stopped. There was a girl, Tiara continued. She was 12 years old, skinny, with braids and 2 big glasses. She had a treehouse in the backyard and a dog named Perseus. The memory surfaced like a dream. A hot Georgia summer. A lonely Korean teenager dragged along on business trips. And a girl who'd taught him how to skip stones in the river, who'd shared her comics, who'd made him laugh for the first time since his mother died. That was you, Ji-hoon breathed. That was me. Tiara's smile was sad. You probably don't remember, but you told me something that summer. You said your mom had just died, and you felt like you were drowning. You said my treehouse was the only place you could breathe. Ji-hoon did remember. He remembered the weight of grief, the suffocating expectations of his father, the loneliness of being 15 and lost. And he remembered a girl with kind eyes who'd let him hide in her treehouse and cry. You gave me your mother's bracelet, Tiara said quietly. A jade bracelet. You said you wanted me to have it because I made you feel less alone. Ji-hoon's chest tightened. I forgot. God, I forgot all of it. You were grieving. And then your father pulled you out of Savannah early because of the embezzlement accusation. You never came back. Tiara's voice was carefully neutral. A week later, my father was dead. The weight of it crushed Ji-hoon. He'd been saved from his grief by the girl whose father his father had destroyed. The symmetry was cruel. I still have it, Tiara whispered. The bracelet. I've worn it every day for 20 years. It reminded me that not all Park men are heartless, that somewhere there was a boy who knew how to be kind. Ji-hoon turned to face her fully, and the distance between them felt electric. Why didn't you tell me? 2 years, Tiara. You've been in my house for 2 years, and you never said, because you were in love with a woman trying to kill you. Tiara cut him off, her voice rising. Because I needed to stay invisible to protect you. Because if you'd known who I was, you would have asked questions, and Vivian would have noticed, and everything I'd worked for would have been destroyed. She stepped closer, her eyes blazing. I gave up my identity for 2 years to save your life, Ji-hoon. I put on that uniform, and I cleaned your floors, and I let you look through me like I was nothing, because that was the only way to keep you alive. The confession hung between them, raw and desperate. Ji-hoon's hand moved without permission, reaching up to cup her face. His thumb brushed away a tear she probably didn't know had fallen. You were never nothing. Tiara closed her eyes, leaning into his touch for just a heartbeat. Then she stepped back, putting distance between them. We don't have time for this. Vivian will be back soon. We need to plan. Plan what? The wedding. Tiara's voice shifted back to professional, but Ji-hoon could see the cracks in her armor. We let it proceed. We let Vivian think she's won, and then, at the altar, we destroy her. Ji-hoon should have felt triumphant, should have felt powerful. Instead, he just felt the ghost of Tiara's skin under his palm and the devastating realization that the most important person in his life had been invisible to him for 2 years. After this is over, he said quietly, after Vivian is in handcuffs and the truth is public, what happens to you? Tiara's smile was bittersweet. I disappear. I always do. And if I asked you to stay, then I'd remind you that you asked the wrong woman to marry you once already. She gathered the folders, her movements brisk. Let's not make the same mistake twice. She left the study before Ji-hoon could respond, her red uniform disappearing down the hallway. And Ji-hoon stood alone, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, realizing he'd spent 2 years ignoring the only person who'd ever truly seen him. The next morning, Ji-hoon woke to find Vivian already awake, lounging in bed with her tablet, scrolling through seating charts for the wedding. She looked radiant, her blonde hair perfectly tousled, her silk nightgown artfully revealing. The picture of a devoted fiancé. Good morning, darling, she purred, not looking up. How are you feeling? Yesterday was so frightening. Ji-hoon studied her with new eyes, the careful smile, the practiced concern. How had he ever thought this was love? Much better, he said, keeping his voice neutral. The doctor said it was likely stress. You work too hard. Vivian finally set down the tablet, her hand trailing across his chest. Maybe after the wedding we should take a long honeymoon, somewhere remote. The Maldives, perhaps, somewhere remote, somewhere with limited medical facilities, somewhere a wealthy man could have a tragic accident far from witnesses. Ji-hoon forced a smile. That sounds perfect. Vivian's eyes gleamed. I've already asked Marcus to make arrangements. 3 weeks, completely private, just you and me. Marcus. The name from the phone call. Ji-hoon filed it away. Actually, he said carefully, I wanted to talk to you about something. The prenuptial agreement. Vivian stiffened slightly. What about it? I'd like to revise it. Remove the financial protections. Her eyes widened. Darling, that's... You're about to be my wife, Ji-hoon interrupted, hating every word. I don't want you to think I don't trust you. The prenup was my lawyer's idea, but honestly, Vivian, what's mine should be yours. Completely? He watched her face transform. The flash of greed, the calculation, the barely suppressed smile. Are you certain? She asked, her voice honey-sweet. That's such a generous gesture. I'm certain. Ji-hoon pulled her close, ignoring the revulsion crawling under his skin. I want you to know I'm committed to this marriage, to us, for the rest of my life. However long that might be, her expression seemed to say. I'll call my lawyer today, Vivian said, already reaching for her phone. Oh, Ji-hoon, you've made me so happy. She kissed him, and it felt like poison. That afternoon, Ji-hoon found Tiara in the library. She was cataloging books, her movements efficient, but he noticed the tension in her shoulders when she sensed him enter. "I told Vivian I'm removing the prenup," he said without preamble. Tiara's hand stilled on a leather-bound volume. "That's dangerous. That's bait." Ji-hoon moved closer. "She'll escalate. If she thinks she's about to get everything without the weight, she'll make a mistake, or she'll kill you faster, not if you're watching." Tiara finally turned, and Ji-hoon saw the fear beneath her composure. "You're playing with fire. So are you. You've been playing with it for 2 years. He stopped a foot away from her. "Tell me about Marcus Levine, Vivian's lawyer, also her lover." Tiara pulled out her phone, showing him surveillance photos. Vivian and a man in his 40s embracing outside a hotel. They've been together for 3 years. He helped her with the first 2 husbands. I suspect he's the one who actually does the killing. And Vivian? She's the strategist, the seductress, the face. Tiara swiped through more photos. Marcus handles the dirty work. Together, they're a perfect team. Ji-hoon studied the photos, his mind working. If we can prove they're working together, we can. Tiara showed him a new document. I've been monitoring their communications. They're planning something for the week before the wedding, a meeting with an offshore banking specialist in Charleston. They're moving money, setting up accounts in the Cayman Islands. Can we trace it? I already have. Tiara's smile was sharp. But here's where it gets interesting. I didn't just trace where the money's going. I traced where it came from. She pulled up a financial chart on her phone. The Marchands didn't just frame my father for embezzlement. They actually did embezzle from dozens of companies over 30 years. They built their entire fortune on stolen money. And when they died, all of it went to Vivian. How much? $200 million, all of it laundered through legitimate businesses and real estate holdings. Tiara's voice hardened. Including the Savannah property where my father's body was found. The Marchands bought it 2 days after he died. They've owned it ever since. Ji-hoon felt rage building in his chest. They bought the place where they killed him. Poetic, isn't it? Tiara's laugh was hollow. But here's the thing. Vivian has been liquidating those holdings over the past year. Selling off properties, closing accounts. She's preparing for something big. The Maldives honeymoon, Ji-hoon said slowly. She mentioned it this morning. 3 weeks, completely private, arranged by Marcus. Tiara's face went pale. That's where she'll do it. Remote location, limited oversight, easy to stage an accident. And with the prenup removed, she inherits everything immediately. Unless we stop her first. How? Tiara's frustration leaked through. We have evidence of her previous crimes, but it's all circumstantial. The deaths were ruled natural. The money transfers are technically legal. Without concrete proof of attempted murder, we can't. So we get concrete proof. Ji-hoon pulled out his phone. I'll wear a wire to the wedding. We'll get her to confess. That's insane. She will if she thinks she's won. Ji-hoon stepped closer, his voice intense. She's arrogant, Tiara. She thinks I'm a fool. She thinks she's played me perfectly, and arrogant people get careless. Tiara searched his face. This isn't a game, Ji-hoon. If she suspects anything, then you'll protect me. Like you have been. He caught her hand, the one still holding her phone. I trust you. The words seemed to hit Tiara like a physical force. Her breath caught. You barely know me. I knew you 20 years ago. I knew you well enough to give you my mother's bracelet. Ji-hoon's thumb brushed over her knuckles. And I've seen you for 2 years, even if I was too blind to realize it. You're brilliant, Tiara. You're ruthless when you need to be, and you've sacrificed everything to save me from my own stupidity. Ji-hoon, I know this can't be about us. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The admission hurt more than he expected. But after we destroy Vivian, after this is over, he stopped, unsure how to finish. Tiara pulled her hand away gently. After this is over, you'll remember I'm the daughter of the man your father destroyed. You'll remember that my entire presence in your life is built on lies and surveillance. And you'll realize that trust built on deception isn't really trust at all. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Tiara's eyes glistened. My father is dead. 3 innocent men are dead. You almost became number 4. Fairness left this story a long time ago. Before Ji-hoon could respond, They heard the front door open. Vivian's voice echoed through the mansion, calling his name. Tiara immediately shifted, her expression becoming neutral, her posture subservient. The transformation was seamless and devastating to watch. "I should get back to work, Mr. Park," she said, her voice carefully flat. Tiara. But she was already moving past him, the invisible woman again, leaving Ji-hoon alone with the weight of everything unsaid. That evening, Ji-hoon sat in his study, reviewing the files Tiara had compiled. The evidence was damning, but incomplete. They needed Vivian to incriminate herself. They needed... His phone buzzed, an unknown number. He answered. "Yes, Mr. Park." The voice was female, unfamiliar. "My name is Detective Sarah Kwan with the Savannah Police Department. I understand you've been conducting your own investigation into Vivian Laurent." Ji-hoon's blood went cold. "I don't know what you're... I'm not here to arrest anyone. I'm here to help." A pause. "Tiara Sterling contacted me 6 months ago with evidence related to several suspicious deaths. We've been building a case quietly, but we need more. We need proof of active conspiracy." "You're working with Tiara? She's been a consultant on this case, an unpaid one." Detective Kwan's voice softened. "She's been through hell, Mr. Park. What the Marchands did to her father, to her family, it destroyed everything. But instead of collapsing, she became one of the most thorough investigators I've ever worked with. This case is personal for her, but she's never let that compromise the evidence." Ji-hoon's throat tightened. "What do you need from me?" "Your cooperation with The Wire. Your commitment to seeing this through." A pause. "And your promise that you'll protect her when this is over. Because when Vivian Laurent falls, there will be powerful people who want to bury this story. Tiara will be vulnerable." "I'll protect her," Ji-hoon said immediately. "Whatever it takes. Good. We'll be in touch with the technical details. And Mr. Park, thank you for trusting her. Not many men would." The call ended. Ji-hoon sat in the darkness, understanding finally settling over him. Tiara hadn't been playing a lone game. She'd been building a case with law enforcement, gathering evidence that would hold up in court, preparing for a moment of public reckoning. She'd been 3 steps ahead the entire time, and she'd been doing it all to save a man who hadn't even remembered her name. Late that night, Ji-hoon found himself in the kitchen, unable to sleep. He was surprised to find Tiara there, sitting at the island with a cup of tea. He's still in her uniform, despite the hour being past midnight. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked quietly. Detective Kwan called. Tiara's hand tightened around her mug. "I was going to tell you." "When?" "When I was sure you wouldn't fire me for involving the police without your consent." She met his eyes. "I know it's your life, your risk. But I couldn't let Vivian walk away. Not again." Ji-hoon sat beside her, the kitchen intimate in its late-night quiet. "How long have you been working with them?" "Since I found husband number 2's autopsy report. There were inconsistencies the family doctor missed." Detective Kwan was willing to listen. Tiara stared into her tea. "She's the only one who believed me when I said my father was innocent. I believe you." Tiara's laugh was soft and sad. "Now you do, after I've proven it 10 times over. I'm sorry I didn't remember you. I'm sorry I didn't..." "Stop apologizing." Tiara set down her mug. "You were 15 and grieving. I don't hold that against you. What I hold against you is the 2 years you looked through me like I was furniture." The words stung because they were true. "I see you now," Ji-hoon said quietly. "Only because I forced you to." Tiara turned to face him. "That's not the same as choosing to see me. Then let me choose." Ji-hoon reached for her hand, half expecting her to pull away. She didn't. "After this is over, after Vivian is in prison and the truth is public, let me choose to see you every day. Let me choose to learn everything I should have learned 2 years ago." Tiara's eyes searched his face. "Why?" "Because you gave me your father's memory. You gave me 2 years of your life. You gave me protection when I didn't even know I needed it." Ji-hoon's voice roughened. "And 20 years ago you gave me a place to breathe when I was drowning. I'd like to return the favor." For a long moment, Tiara didn't move. Then, slowly, she turned her hand in his, lacing their fingers together. "1 week," she whispered. "In 1 week this all ends. Vivian gets arrested at the altar. The conspiracy goes public, and you get your life back. What about you? What do you get?" Tiara's smile was bittersweet. "I get to watch my father's name cleared. I get to know 3 widows will finally have justice for their husbands, and I get to see the Marchand legacy burn. That's not enough. It's all I came for. But her hand remained in his, warm and certain, and Ji-hoon realized she was lying. To him or to herself, he wasn't sure. They sat in the quiet kitchen, hands intertwined, both knowing that in 7 days everything would change. The only question was whether they'd survive it intact, separately, or together. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment and tell us, are you Team Ji-hoon or Team Tiara? And let us know what city you're watching from. Trust me, the next chapter is going to blow your mind. You don't want to miss what happens when Vivian realizes she's been playing checkers while Tiara's been playing chess. The week before the wedding moved like a dream wrapped in barbed wire. Ji-hoon played the devoted fiancé with precision that would have impressed his business rivals. He accompanied Vivian to cake tastings, smiled through endless conversations about floral arrangements, and watched her eyes light up every time she mentioned the honeymoon. Just imagine, she purred one evening over dinner at Savannah's most expensive restaurant, 3 weeks of complete privacy. No business calls, no distractions, just us and whatever accident she had planned. I can't wait, Ji-hoon lied, reaching across the table to take her hand. Her skin felt cold despite the Georgia heat pressing against the restaurant's windows. Vivian's smile was sharp as a blade hidden in silk. Marcus finalized the Maldives arrangements today. We have a private villa on an island with no permanent staff. Complete isolation. Sounds perfect. It will be. Her thumb traced circles on his palm, the gesture intimate and predatory. I've waited so long for this, Ji-hoon. To finally have everything we deserve, everything she deserves, he thought. His money, his empire, his corpse. That night back at the mansion, Ji-hoon found Tiara in the laundry room at midnight. She was folding linens with mechanical precision, her mind clearly elsewhere. Detective Kwan dropped off the wire today, she said without looking up. It's state-of-the-art, undetectable. When do we test it? Tomorrow, at the rehearsal dinner. Tiara's hand stilled on a pillowcase. Vivian invited Marcus. She wants him there as a family friend. Perfect. We'll get them both on tape. It's risky. Tiara finally met his eyes, and Ji-hoon saw the fear she'd been hiding. If anything goes wrong, it won't. He crossed the small room, the air thick with the scent of lavender detergent and unspoken words. You've planned every detail. You've been 3 steps ahead for 2 years. That doesn't mean I'm not terrified. The admission cracked her composure. If she hurts you, if I miss something. Ji-hoon caught her wrist, gentle but firm. Then I trust you to save me, like you have been. Tiara's breath hitched. In the dim light of the laundry room, she looked younger, more vulnerable. The red uniform that usually made her invisible suddenly made her hypervisible, a woman who'd sacrificed everything for a ghost of justice. After Saturday, she whispered. After the wedding, after Vivian is arrested, promise me you'll forget about me. What? Promise me you'll move on. Find someone who didn't spend 2 years lying to you. Someone who doesn't carry my kind of damage. Her voice broke. Someone who didn't watch their father die and spend a decade planning revenge. Ji-hoon stepped closer, to closing the distance until he could see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. What if I don't want to forget? Then you're a fool. But she didn't pull away. I've been a fool for 2 years. At least now I'm being a fool with intention. The space between them felt electric. Ji-hoon was aware of every breath she took, every flutter of her pulse at her throat. Tiara's lips parted, and for one suspended moment, he thought about closing the final inches between them. Then, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Tiara transformed instantly, shoulders slumping, eyes lowering, becoming the invisible woman again. She picked up the laundry basket just as Vivian appeared in the doorway. Ji-hoon, what are you doing in the laundry room? Vivian's tone was amused, condescending. Looking for you, he lied smoothly. I wanted to discuss the seating chart. Vivian's gaze flicked to Tiara, dismissive. Well, you found the help instead. Come, darling, it's late. She held out her hand, imperious. Ji-hoon took it, but not before catching Tiara's eyes one last time. In them, he saw everything she couldn't say. Be careful. Don't trust her. Come back alive. He followed Vivian upstairs, leaving Tiara alone in the laundry room with her fears and her folded linens and the weight of a plan that had to work, because failure meant death. The rehearsal dinner took place at the historic old pink house, Savannah's crown jewel of antebellum architecture. Vivian had spared no expense: crystal chandeliers, imported roses, champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent. Ji-hoon wore the wire taped against his ribs, a tiny microphone hidden in his tie clip. Detective Kwan and her team were positioned in a van 2 blocks away, recording everything. Vivian floated through the room in a crimson dress that matched her intentions, playing the perfect bride-to-be. And beside her, never far from reach, was Marcus Levine. Marcus was exactly what Ji-hoon expected: polished, charismatic, with the kind of smile that made people trust him with their life savings. He greeted Ji-hoon with a firm handshake and congratulations that sounded genuine. "Vivian is lucky to have found you," Marcus said, his voice smooth. "After everything she's been through, Ji-hoon repeated carefully. "You mean her previous marriages?" A flash of something crossed Marcus's face, then the smile returned. "I meant the loss of her parents. So tragic. Yes, car accident, wasn't it? Faulty brakes." Marcus sipped his champagne. These things happen. The casual dismissal of 2 deaths made Ji-hoon's skin crawl. He needed to push harder, get Marcus to reveal something incriminating. "I appreciate you arranging the Maldives honeymoon," Ji-hoon continued. "Vivian mentioned you found us a very private location. Privacy is important." Marcus's eyes were cold despite his smile, especially for a couple who deserve time away from prying eyes. Prying eyes, like police, like witnesses. Before Ji-hoon could respond, Vivian appeared at his elbow. "Darling, come meet the wedding planner. She has questions about tomorrow's timeline." She led him away, her nails digging into his arm just slightly too hard. "You're being obvious," she murmured, her voice low and dangerous. "Stop interrogating Marcus." Ji-hoon's blood went cold. "I was just making conversation. You were fishing." Vivian's smile never wavered, but her eyes were ice. "I know you, Ji-hoon. I know when you're pretending." His heart hammered against the wire. Did she know? Had she figured it out? "I don't know what you mean," he said carefully. Vivian stopped in a quiet corner, turning to face him. In the candlelight, she looked almost beautiful, if beauty could be lethal. "Let me be clear," she said softly. "Tomorrow, you will marry me. You will say your vows with conviction. And then we will go on our honeymoon, and you will be the devoted husband until—" She stopped, her smile widening. "Well, until death do us part. Understood?" The threat was barely veiled. Ji-hoon forced himself to smile back. "Of course, until death do us part." "Good." Vivian kissed his cheek, her lips cold. "Now, let's enjoy our party. After all, it's the last one you'll—" Another pause. The last one before we're married. She walked away, leaving Ji-hoon with the distinct impression that she knew exactly what he was planning, and that she had plans of her own. The morning of the wedding dawned gray and humid, the kind of Savannah weather that pressed against skin like a warning. Ji-hoon stood in the groom's suite of the historic church, adjusting his tie for the 5th time, trying not to think about the wire beneath his custom tuxedo. Detective Kwan's voice crackled in the nearly invisible earpiece. "We're in position. Cathedral has 4 undercover officers in the pews. When we give the signal, we move." "Understood," Ji-hoon murmured, pretending to talk to himself in the mirror. "One more thing, Mr. Park." Kwan's voice held warning. "We intercepted a text between Vivian and Marcus last night. They know something's wrong. Be careful." Ji-hoon's reflection stared back at him, a man about to marry his would-be murderer in front of 300 witnesses and hidden police officers. The absurdity would have been funny if his life didn't depend on the next 2 hours going perfectly. A knock at the door. His best man, David, entered with a concerned expression. "You okay, man? You look like you're going to be sick." "Just nerves," Ji-hoon lied. "Well, it's time. Vivian's ready." Of course she was. Vivian was always ready. The cathedral was breathtaking. White roses cascaded from every surface, their scent almost overwhelming. Afternoon light filtered through stained glass, painting the pews in colors of blood and gold. Georgia's elite filled the seats. Old money. New money, politicians and socialites who'd come to witness the wedding of the year. If only they knew they were about to witness an arrest instead. Ji-hoon took his position at the altar, scanning the crowd. He spotted Detective Kwon in the third row, disguised as a guest. 2 more undercover officers near the exits. The DA himself was positioned in the balcony. And in the very back, barely visible in the shadows, stood Tiara. She wasn't in her red uniform. Instead, she wore a simple gray suit that transformed her from invisible help into a woman of quiet power. Her hair was pulled back, revealing the elegant lines of her face. Even from a distance, Ji-hoon could see the tension in her posture, the way her hands clenched at her sides. Their eyes met across the cathedral, and in that moment, Ji-hoon made a silent promise. We end this today. The wedding march began. Vivian appeared at the cathedral doors, and gasps rippled through the crowd. She was stunning in white lace and pearls, a vision of bridal perfection. Her smile was radiant as she walked down the aisle, her gaze fixed on Ji-hoon, with something that might have been love if you didn't know it was calculation. She reached the altar, took Ji-hoon's hand and whispered, "Last chance to run." Was she joking? Threatening? He couldn't tell. The priest began the ceremony, his voice echoing through the cathedral. Ji-hoon barely heard the words. His entire focus was on the wire, on the signal, on the moment when this elaborate trap would spring shut. "If anyone objects to this union," the priest intoned, "speak now or forever hold your peace." This was it. This was the moment Tiara was supposed to step forward, but she didn't move. Ji-hoon's pulse spiked. Something was wrong. Then Vivian laughed, a soft, delighted sound that made his blood run cold. "Oh, this is precious," she said, turning to face the crowd. "Were you waiting for an objection, darling? Waiting for your little cleaning lady to save you?" The cathedral went silent. Vivian's smile widened. "Did you really think I didn't know? That I didn't recognize Maxwell Sterling's daughter the moment she walked into my house?" The cathedral erupted in whispers. Ji-hoon felt the world tilt sideways. "You knew?" he managed. "Of course I knew." Vivian's voice carried through the church, amplified by perfect acoustics and pure venom. "Tiara Elizabeth Sterling, daughter of the embezzler. But did you think I wouldn't research every person who enters my home?" From the back of the cathedral, Tiara stepped forward. Her face was calm, almost serene, and that's when Ji-hoon realized she wasn't surprised. "Hello, Vivian," Tiara said quietly. "Took you long enough to show your hand." Vivian's smile faltered for just a second. "Excuse me?" "I knew you knew." Tiara walked down the aisle, her footsteps echoing. "I've known for 18 months that you figured out who I was. The slight changes in your behavior. The way you started accidentally leaving incriminating documents where I'd find them. The planted evidence that was just a bit too convenient." Ji-hoon's mind reeled. They'd both been playing each other? "You wanted me to build a case," Tiara continued, stopping 10 feet from the altar. "You wanted me to gather evidence and involve the police, create a big public spectacle, because that was your exit strategy all along." Vivian's mask cracked. "You're delusional." "Am I?" Tiara pulled out her phone. "Should I play the recording from 3 nights ago, the one where you told Marcus that you were finally getting out from under the Marchand legacy? That you were letting Sterling's pathetic daughter do the dirty work of exposing everything while you disappear?" The color drained from Vivian's face. "You killed your parents," Tiara said, her voice steady and terrible, not because they were collateral damage, but because they were going to expose you for killing husband number 1. They wanted to protect the family name, turn you in, cut you off, so you cut their brake lines and inherited everything. "Lies," Vivian hissed. "Pierre Marchand kept a journal." "Did you know that?" Tiara's smile was sharp. It was in a safety deposit box registered under his lawyer's name, the same lawyer who mysteriously died 6 years ago, another natural death, I'm sure. But his son found the journal last year. And guess what? Pierre documented everything. How he framed my father, how his daughter became a monster, how he planned to turn her in before she killed him first. Vivian lunged for Tiara, but Ji-hoon caught her arm. She spun on him, eyes wild. "You think you've won?" she snarled. "You think this is over? I have contingencies. You have nothing." Detective Kwon stood, badge visible. "Vivian Marchand, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, 3 counts of first-degree murder, and fraud." Officers moved in from all sides. Marcus tried to run, but two undercover officers tackled him before he reached the door. Vivian fought as they cuffed her, screaming accusations and threats. But then she stopped, her eyes finding Tiara's one last time. "Your father was weak," she said, venom in every word. He deserved what happened to him. The cathedral went silent. Tiara walked forward until she was inches from Vivian's face. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but carried the weight of a decade of grief and rage. "My father was a good man who trusted the wrong people, but he taught me something before he died." Tiara held up her wrist, showing the jade bracelet Ji-hoon had given her 20 years ago. "He taught me that honor isn't about winning. It's about making sure the truth survives you." She stepped back as the officers led Vivian away. "Oh, and Vivian?" Tiara called out. "The offshore accounts you were planning to access in the Maldives, I emptied them 6 months ago. Every penny is going to the families of your victims. You'll die in prison with nothing." Vivian's scream echoed through the cathedral as they dragged her out. 6 months later, autumn had turned Savannah into a painting of gold and crimson. Ji-hoon stood on the porch of the Sterling estate, the house his father's company had foreclosed on 20 years ago, the house he'd bought back 3 weeks after Vivian's arrest. The renovation was complete. What had been a decaying monument to tragedy was now alive again. Fresh paint, restored gardens, and enough light to chase away 2 decades of darkness. "You didn't have to do this," Tiara said from the doorway. She wore jeans and a sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. Without the uniform, without the performance, she looked like herself, beautiful and dangerous and free. "Yes, I did." Ji-hoon turned to face her. "Your father lost everything because of mine. The least I can do is give you back your home." "Ji-hoon, let me finish." He crossed the porch, stopping close enough to see the gold flecks in her eyes. "I've spent 6 months thinking about what you said, about trust built on deception, about whether we could ever be real." Tiara's expression was guarded. "And what did you decide?" "I decided that you spent 2 years protecting me when I didn't deserve it. You solved a conspiracy that spanned decades. You brought justice to families who'd given up hope." He reached for her hand, and this time she let him take it. "You gave me back my life, Tiara. The least I can do is spend it getting to know the real you. The real me is damaged goods," she said softly. "I'm the daughter of a suicide. I spent 10 years obsessed with revenge. I lied to you for 2 years, and I'm the son of a man who destroyed your father without questioning the evidence. I almost married a serial killer. I looked through you like you were furniture." Ji-hoon's thumb brushed over her knuckles. "Sounds like we're both damaged goods. Maybe we can be broken together." Tiara's laugh was watery. "That's the worst romantic line I've ever heard. I'm a businessman, not a poet." He smiled. "But I mean it. Stay, Tiara, not as my employee, not as my protector, just as you. And what are you offering in return?" "Time, honesty, and a partnership that has nothing to do with money or revenge or the past." Ji-hoon pulled her closer. "I'm offering to learn everything I should have learned 2 years ago, starting with your favorite color." "Forest green?" Tiara whispered. "Your favorite food?" "My father's jollof rice recipe. He learned it from my mother's family." "Your dreams?" Tiara's eyes glistened. "I wanted to be a lawyer. Before everything fell apart, I wanted to defend people who couldn't defend themselves." "Then do it," Ji-hoon said simply. "I'll fund your law school, no strings attached. And when you graduate, you can decide if you want to build something with me or build something on your own. Your choice." "Why would you do that?" "Because 20 years ago, a girl with 2 big glasses gave me a place to breathe when I was drowning. And 2 years ago, a woman in a red uniform saved my life without me even knowing it." He cupped her face gently. "I'm just trying to return the favor." Tiara closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "This is insane." "Probably. We barely know each other. Then we have time to learn. The press will have a field day. Billionaire falls for housekeeper who exposed his killer fiancée. Let them talk." Ji-hoon's voice was steady. "I've spent my whole life worrying about what people think. I'm done. The only opinion that matters is yours." Tiara opened her eyes, and Ji-hoon saw the fear and hope warring in them. "What if I can't do this? What if the damage is too deep? Then we'll figure it out together." He rested his forehead against hers. I'm not asking for forever, Tiara. I'm just asking for a chance. One honest chance to see what we could be if we started with truth instead of lies. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, slowly, deliberately, she kissed him. It wasn't desperate or passionate or dramatic. It was quiet and certain, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise instead of a performance. When they pulled apart, Tiara was crying, but she was smiling too. "Okay," she whispered. "One honest chance." "One honest chance," Ji-hoon agreed. They stood on the porch of the Sterling estate as the Georgia sun set behind them, two people who'd survived conspiracy and murder in their own broken pasts. They didn't know if love built on ruins could last. They didn't know if damaged people could heal each other. But for the first time in 20 years, Tiara Elizabeth Sterling was home. And for the first time in his life, Ji-hoon Park was exactly where he was supposed to be. 3 years later, the Park Sterling Foundation offices occupied the top floor of Ji-hoon's downtown Savannah headquarters. From the conference room windows, you could see the river where Maxwell Sterling's body had been found, a view Tiara had insisted on. "We don't forget," she'd said when they designed the space. "We transform." Today the conference room was full. Tiara, now in her final year of law school, led the meeting with the kind of commanding presence that would have made her father proud. She'd cut her hair short, wore power suits instead of uniforms, and spoke with the authority of someone who'd stared down killers and won. "The scholarship fund is fully operational," she announced to the board. "We've identified 15 children of wrongfully accused parents who will receive full college funding. And the legal aid clinic opens next month." Ji-hoon watched her with quiet pride. They'd married a year ago in a small ceremony with only close friends, no cathedral, no spectacle, just truth and commitment. The press had been scandalized. Ji-hoon's business associates had been confused. Neither of them cared. "One more thing," Tiara said, her eyes finding his across the table. "We've been contacted by the Innocence Project. They want our help reviewing Maxwell Sterling's case officially. They believe we can get his conviction posthumously overturned." Ji-hoon's chest tightened. Clearing Maxwell Sterling's name had been Tiara's obsession for 3 years. To finally be close to that goal. "When?" he asked. "Hearing is in 3 months." Tiara's smile was brilliant. "We're going to do it, Ji. We're going to give my father back his honor." The meeting adjourned. As the board members filed out, Ji-hoon pulled Tiara aside. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "We did this together." "No, you did this. I just gave you the resources." He kissed her forehead. "Your father would be so proud of who you've become." Tiara's eyes glistened. "I wish he could see it. I think he can." Ji-hoon held her close. "And I think he knows his daughter didn't just survive. She conquered." They stood in the office overlooking the river, two people who'd built something beautiful from the ruins of conspiracy and grief. The past couldn't be changed. The dead couldn't be brought back. But justice could still be served. And love, messy, complicated, hard-won love, could still grow in the spaces between the scars. Tiara Elizabeth Sterling had started as a cleaning lady with a vendetta. She'd ended as a lawyer, a philanthropist, and the woman who'd saved Ji-hoon Park from marrying death itself. But more than that, she'd ended as herself, finally, fully, honestly herself. And that, Ji-hoon thought as he held his wife in the office they'd built together, was the greatest victory of all. That's it, family. 8 chapters, 8 plot twists, and one hell of a love story built on lies, revenge, and redemption. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from and whether you saw that Vivian twist coming. And if you're feeling generous, hit that like button and share this with someone who loves a good dark romance with brains and heart. Want more stories like this? Comment part 2 and tell us what kind of story you want next. Another mafia romance, a revenge thriller, a forbidden love story. We read every comment, and your requests shape what we create. Until next time, remember, the best love stories aren't the easy ones. They're the ones where two broken people choose to build something whole. Peace.